All right, so as we start in to our kind of the setting of our seat position today, what we're inviting is this, the alignment in the back lines of the body. So when you sit on two blankets at a height that's approximate to, it's a little lower than a bolster height, a flat bolster. If you happen to have many bolsters, have them around today, it might be useful. But let's kind of notice the back muscles in the legs, even let the bolster just sit itself down and touch to the back of your knees. You can kind of feel the texture of the back of the knees is right to the hamstring. It's almost like you can almost find that, that muscle, that kind of twanginess at that base. Now, if your knees are bending, right, that contracts in that zone. So I want you to start with a very kind of soft knee pattern and lift up your bolster. And as it's up on its short end, this pattern today is quite different than whatever we're used to. I think it's good to have some change. Keep moving along here. So when you have your hands centered and your spine centered, visualize that the spinal column has a elevation out of the kind of the parking garage of the pelvis. And then as you tilt forwards, keep that pelvic basin like that bowl, because the knees are bending, so you have a basin here. I want you to lean forward and explore alternating motion of forward bend. This includes the juncture of your shoulder blades, that attachment into the arms, your head, and then as you round your back, come back up to what you think of is a tall spine. Inhale here, tall spine. Exhale, forwards. Okay, pattern this movement. So I invite you to be sensitive to the breathing directions, which are individually designed purposely today. So as you slant your body forwards, be sure the bolster is stabilizing your back. So you might need it closer. You might actually feel it's too close for comfort. So as you lean front, this next opportunity forward, I want you to come back about maybe 30% back and then straighten the legs so they're in this external rotation. The feet are flexed, the toes are pointing upwards. Try to feel the heels kind of press almost like they're scrubbing into the floor. And then with this, we go back forwards and really consider the muscles in the back of the legs. You've decided on the span of the legs when you began. So instead of trying to force a flexible design, I want you to reinforce the direct glide of the upper body and noticing almost when you're working on stabilizing your core, the flexibility in the legs and the spine, but then come to that awareness of that flexibility along the rib cage in the back. So we'll take a few moments here to focus on where a little bit more of our lungs live in the back body, right? It's about 10%, 60% are in the back. So as you lean forward to let that area kind of vent out, head center of the arms, reach your breath into the upper ribs like you're creating a cape on your back, like expand the ribs. And exhale, you might shift a little forward. And now come back through center and we'll take our bolster. We're going to take the legs together first and then place the bolster at the base of the shins, right at the perfect hook of a foot, right? You've got like this foot platform that can hook and hold onto that bolster. If the back of the knees are a little bit queasy about this pressure, slide a sandbag underneath them. It does not have to be like a perfectly balanced weight under each knee, but it does orient the legs to safety. I think a sandbag's especially helpful here. So we're leaning forward on the bolster and my hands press. I'm gonna let the feet kind of relax from trying to pull the toes back and target the reach of the heels. And then feel if you can stay with that path of the spine arching here versus slouching. Do the work with reaching through the ribs, okay? Hamstring focus, go a little farther forward. If it's possible for you to kind of clutch onto the bolster, whether it's on the top or over the corner of the bolster, feel the sitting bones. However, I haven't mentioned sitting bones as focus yet. So I'm trying to encourage you to work from the pelvis, the back muscles, and let the sitting bones not be such a piece of hardware that you're trying to push down. So you kind of roll out of the pelvis. Okay, come back up. And then as we slide the bolster in, we're going to place it actually in front of our feet across the mat. We'll move our sand aside, and this is where we'll want to slide down off our blankets, bring our legs up on the bolster, and take one of your blankets off to the sides, okay? And then as you put your blanket one to the back, this will be for your brain in a few moments, we'll take the belt that we have buckled up into a wide loop, or that you'll do now, and we'll design that belt so it's at the top of our back stream. And then as I reach it and get the belt to, you know, kind of embrace the feet, I think that mentality might be useful. And then the hands perhaps on the floor, or perhaps holding the belt. You're going to lean back and lift up the legs. So find the right width with your belt that allows you a quality support for this back, kind of the basket weave of the lower back into the pelvis that has been kind of our base for the last few minutes. So with a few more moments here before we move on to our backs, I want you to design a focus where maybe the eyes can close. The noticer is where the places might be in discomfort sometimes in this pose, or shaky. So feel if you can hold your belt, if you can touch the floor, hold the back of the legs. I think it's essential shape to give some study to this pose, boat, especially when you have the belt to hold you. Okay, so these hip flexors zone right at the top of the thighs, kind of notice where it's met with the belly in the center. Feel the ribs move with the breath. So as if they expand and center. Okay, now with that expansion, that centering, we're going to place that expansion all the way up through the ribs, lateral motion in the core body. So we'll lower the feet down, take the belt off all the way, and then let's take a body setting so that we push our seat a little closer to the bolster, and then bring yourself on down. Be sure you have your sandbag nearby and your blocks. And we'll start with a bridge flow minus props, except for, I suppose we do have a blanket. And the blanket today, though, is going to be somewhat important. And that may be unusual for you. So if your blanket is in too high of a fold, your neck comfort, flatten it so you have at least a little bit of a cervical curve here. This could be too high for you, you might lower it down. But I want you to have something under your head. And then with the bolster close enough to you, okay, situate your feet. And then as the hands push on the thighs, mid-leg, we're going to push and round the back, flexing through the spine, lift your hips up, and stretch your arms overhead. So we're gradually coming into what you could say the meditative frame in the beginning. We took some moves in the very first approach that were active, and then we'll lower back down the spine. I want you to take about 3 more drawbridge patterns, okay? So you have a feeling of your feet, a feeling of the hips, and the reach of the arms back. Now, as you guide your spine down, maybe noticing if the knees were trying to move out, we're going to place our feet together, our knees outwards, and slide in a couple blocks below the legs. Below legs might be for you close to the upper outer thigh, maybe close like you're trying to push it in towards the hips. You know, that can be kind of interesting to do. Another way to go with the blocks is to pivot them so they are contoured under your legs. Find out where you could settle, right? With less fidgeting at some point. And then the sand can go on your ribs. If you don't want to use sand, pass along, pass the sand, that's okay. But the grounding influence of some weight on the ribs or the belly ensures the focal point here into the channel of breath in the corridor of the waist, okay? So let the arms release open. Feel where the combination of arms and feet, both parts, both pairs, is an essential piece of this shape for being connected, right? Feeling the openness of the hands and the touch of the feet together. Aligning your breath in and exhaling, letting go. Let your eyes close from top to bottom. Now, since the lung pressure is up at the rib cage and behind you, even though, you know, belly breathing may be sometimes a silly concept, it is focusing on the diaphragm. So there's so many elements of breathing besides lungs. You know, there's the diaphragmatic element that you could focus on either ranges, the ribs or the belly. So for now, let's bring some focus to the structural balance of the legs. So if you do decide to make this a little bit more stretchier, you could slide the blocks so they're below the knees and they're not oriented close to the thighs. You could also position your blocks so they're flat besides you and it's kind of mid-leg. Legs likely could feel pretty even with the intensity in the adductors. It's such a rare place to gather your focus on, you know, kind of the inventory of value with that area to loosen up. So it's nice to keep a shape for several minutes and see how this exchange of movement will affect us when we go forward in the practice. So shoulders are resting back to the floor, back of your head heavy. Now feeling the tilt of the pelvis, the arch angle of the, like the tailbone. So it's almost the opposite. It is the opposite of tailbone, kind of in awareness. So I want you to feel the natural arch, and that creates that lower back. And it feels is the lower back's health, right? The lumbar curve. Okay, so let's take our belt. We're going to stay in this reclining cobbler's pose for a few. But I want you to hold that belt overhead with enough pressure that there is volume increased in the ribs. So we want to feel that volume increasing in the ribs along the breath. Now let go of the belt. Keep it rather simple. We're going to bring the knees back up into center, and let's actually keep the belt. We're going to move the belt to the legs. So we'll slide the sand aid off. The belt's probably already in a loop. So if you didn't unbuckle it, you're going to just place it over the legs. You could scoop it up with your feet, okay? But this is a variation here for our bridge pose. So what I like you to do is moving from that inner thigh kind of exertion, which you just were kind of required to do in that pose. This has a little bit of that outer thigh exertion. So I'm going to slide the belt so it's mid to upper thigh. Even if your knees tend to splay out, I want you to have the belt so it feels like it's hips distance. And feel the feet step open on the bolster. Okay, so that means the knees go out, right? That pushes the knees outwards. So what I could do is add the block or the ball between the knees, okay? So I'm going to encourage you to add one of those two. Block narrow at its first setting. Ball only seems to have one setting. That's the downfall of the ball, isn't it? That's the one thing I can think of. All right, so when I push down into my feet, my emphasis is the pressure into my feet, moving up the channel of the legs into the level of the hips, okay? I would recommend today for the neck awareness to have the blanket under head, or make it flat, a little lower, but the arms are down besides your hips, so palms are down. Okay, lifting the hips up, see if you can maintain that intensity, and then lower the spine all the way down into the back of the pelvis. Feel what lurks when the pelvis feels like it's centered. Yeah, feel what lurks here. So as you approach coming back up, okay, we're going to lift up the hips again into the bridge pose. And we'll lower back down. Okay, I want you to keep the arms beside you specifically for this. So next time you push into the feet and you lift up, can you turn the palms open? Okay, that's one part. The shoulders are the second. And I want you to try to roll the shoulder down and in as best as you can here. So we understand that the shoulders will tend to, well, they'll have a challenge to keep rolled under because of the perspective of the back on the floor. So just keep this awareness of actually trying to press your shoulders back. Okay? And then as you lower your spine, you're going to bring your knees to your chest and move the ball or block away. And this time you'll need a block. You're going to push into your feet, lift your hips up and slide a block under the back of the pelvis. Okay? And let that block height be low to medium. If it goes up, it's going to start feeling a little bit shoulder standish, right? The chest is going to move towards the chin. So still keep that focus of support under your head, okay? And now from here, as I keep my bridge pose centered, okay? I'm going to bring the knees up so the feet off the bolster. And then tighten up the belt just enough that the legs are cinched in and the legs both straighten out and lift up. Feet up, drain the legs, but also the feet, right? Legs, knees cool off. Feet kind of maybe feel a little bit of a fizzle or a dizzle, draining out, fizzling out. And kind of ensure that this belt is around the leg tissues as advisors to keep it together. You need some advisors to keep it together. So right now we're going to rely on these props for the time being. And be with the time and the pose. Maybe that's a part of this practice, is reinforcing the importance of and the value of time in the poses. Right? So explore the unity of the legs and the arms resting. You could bring them out to cactus. You could situate your blanket so you're a little happier with it. Okay? And feel if the arms, when they move back, if that tends to tighten the lower back. Notice these subtleties. So I find if my arms go back, I do shift my knees a little bit. I do feel a different pull in my lower back muscles. So what I'll do is kind of find that sweet spot with my leg elevation, move it a little bit forwards. We're going to be doing legs up on two different focus points today. So the end we'll do legs up the wall. Forgot to mention that we need a wall spot, but hopefully you'll have something nearby, a little corner of the room or something to get them up with support behind them. So at the time pattern here, feel where the feet are lifting, separate them a little bit as much as you could with this belt. Flex your feet, push up, and then as you unbuckle, you'll likely be able to separate the leg path so that you could reach up into your heels. You're trying to stretch your heels up and feel that dynamic balance of the drain of the lymph, even if it's not a thing you're capturing in your psyche, right? Draining my lymph, right? It's going to occur regardless when you're in this practice, stimulating the flow of lymph. So channel the pressure of the feet up and then bending your knees. Let the knees bend, so you'll probably feel them push a little closer to your ribs, but try to keep it so you have balance of your back of your pelvis on that block elevated to the height you decided, but you'll feel that arch and also kind of an opening in the belly, like it's moving laterally. This belly, torso, rib cage has a lateral movement with your breath. Okay. Now let the right leg lower down. Okay, depending on your leg back sensitivity, you can bring both legs down to the bolster. Very supported bridge pose. Hip flexor opening in the very front line of the upper leg lane from the quadricep up. Now this is a different sequence today than we've done for a long time, so maybe the abnormality of it's interesting on its own. Just some different ways of channeling moving into the sequence. It's good to change it up. If my legs have some separation, it feels easier on my back. Okay, not so tight in the SI joint. So you might notice if you slide your feet, your legs a little bit, they have a little more outward pattern. Careful here that the knees don't roll open, okay? So almost like your calves are pushing a little into your bolster. And then start to slide your feet on top of the bolster, bottoms of the feet pressed down. And then as you're here in this bridge pose, okay, can you push down enough weight into your feet? Just enough, not too much. Consider the practice that, in the practice that you don't have to try to go as far as possible, but find ways to make it easier, right? How you guide yourself in and out of the shapes. Okay, we're trying to make life a little easier, right? At least with our physical structures. So when you push down into your feet, you're going to reach down to the block. You have to engage, but how much do you really have to engage your leg muscles to get the block out? So I want you to do a test slide. You're going to push down your feet, lift up, and then slide the block out. Feel just the right amount of lift, and then lower the spine. Adjust the awareness of your feet pushing and the spinal column lowering down till the back of the pelvis has a light amount of width. Okay, this is important. So the back of the pelvis centers. Before you start to go into a kind of a rib lift or an arch, I want you to kind of seal your back into the floor like you're trying to super seal the ground with your back. Like you're trying to staple the floor with your back. So if you do that, I imagine the band, the diaphragmatic band, is gripping. Okay, so let's take a belt, unbuckle it for certain on this one. It's probably unbuckled by the last pose, huh? Bring your right knee into chest. Okay, so this is a kind of a traditional, I'd say beginning level kind of work that we do with the legs here. But, you know, keep in mind these levels, right, are generally eventually advanced, right, because of the subtle nature of them. So as I hold onto my foot with my belt, I'm going to feel how my back presses down and then let the left leg actually relax down on the bolster. Pull with my hands straight down to the earth and then feel the nature of the foot flexing, but how much can the connective tissue, kind of strapped on the muscles, right? How much can that tolerate this pull? So feel about 70, well actually maybe 85% of your max is what you'll probably do here. The left leg is relaxing on the bolster, that's important. And then let the leg feel like it moves a little back towards your chest and how that can elongate the lower back. Almost like by the natural tendency of a leg to swing back, what's behind it or above it will elongate. It makes sense. Back stretching, you know, it's going to stretch the legs just as deeply. So hold the belt together with your left hand reaching. And then as you push your right foot forward so it's basically above the hip, front of the hip, you're going to cross that right leg to the left with the left leg still resting on the bolster. You can only go so far because of the left leg's position. So I would encourage you to keep that left leg in the exact same sensation as you can feel it from, 20 seconds ago. It might turn out, right? Turnout happens. So if it happens, I want you to bring your right hand to your hip bone and get a feel that you're directing that channel away from your upper body. So pushing it a little bit away, find just the right amount of grip. And then open the right arm out to the side. Open it straight outwards. Breathe slow. The right buttock is off the floor and it's not touched down. The only touchdown mode is left buttock, left shoulder. It would be great if your right shoulder could be down. If it's having some challenges, I would go less with the right leg over. Okay, less. Maybe you have to bend your right knee and put your left elbow on the ground if that's too much. Okay. Now mentally scan the back of the pelvis near the right hip. So I would say it's kind of a sensation of the glutes, right? Get a little bit of stretch. Maybe a lot. Okay. So when you come back in center, bring the left foot onto the bolster, turn the left knee out. I like a block under my leg on this one. I push it in a little bit to my hip, or I prop it up a little higher under the leg. Okay, so you have two options. I'll go propped up. Now as the right leg moves out, hold onto the belt. Keep the arm kind of tethered low here. So instead of trying to push your right elbow wide, I want you to feel the elbow so it kind of swings down, the right elbow. And as the foot moves open, try to keep the foot like it started in this parallel zone. It stays the same versus turning it out. Okay, the inner thigh turns out, but not the foot, not your base. Take a few more moments, feel the leg move open, inner thigh. Now, when you get it together with this stretch, where the circulation is key for the inner leg muscles, but the lymph drain, we'll do a little bit of an exchange test. So we'll bring the right foot back up in center. And once you swap the left foot up, and then take that right leg out, take a moment here where the right leg relaxes down. Right, you're kind of stirring up a new leg. It's good that you only have two to stir up. And feel the belt aligned at the roots of the toes, the ball of the foot. It starts straight up, my biceps are toned, upper inner arm. And as you pull the leg back towards you, feel the elbows get a little closer. If you get kind of rested in these poses, these supiners, and sometimes you get a little sleepy in them. Center your breath. Maybe the breath could be a shorter pace so you don't get drift away as fast, right? So if I really get my exhale longer, I might drift away. And then you'll go, Nicole, are you there? So I hold onto the foot, I take the belt together, hold on with the right hand, cross the left leg over. Okay. Now, take it easy with the wrist, the fingers, all these things about hands. It's likely going to be an issue at some point. So even though it's temporary in the poses, it reflects back into the tissues if it's inflamed, even temporarily. So feel if you can take a different hold on the belt. I wrap it sometimes around, I'll grab on the inside, wrap it around my wrist, but I still have to clutch it. That didn't change. So do the work you can. Another way you can do this if you cannot stand gripping, your fingers hurt with that. Another way is buckle out and going with the pose. I'm just explaining an option. So we're not losing our pose here and let's cross. I could also make a loop. Let's see if that's big enough. Yeah. So it's quite a bit smaller, right? And then I just let my right hand slip into the loop. My hand is not clutching at all. It's just my wrist is getting traction. And that might feel good on your wrist, right? Because it gives your wrist traction. Yeah, whether we did it on the first side, we didn't. So just something to keep in mind that you can do. I start to learn things that I can do for modifications that are better for my knees and so forth, that even though my teacher doesn't bring it up during class, I've learned what to do. Okay, so feel the left buttock. It's lifting, it's rolling to the leg. And the belly is in such a way of circulation and rotation, right? Twists really move the energy through the organs. So it's kind of nice. We're going to do all these different types of twists, and for many people, these types that we're starting with are preferred and kind of sedating and calming for the digestive tract. The seated ones are a little bit more kind of inspiring for the back muscles and the front of the belly that you can feel when you're sitting down. So since you're flat on your back pretty much, you probably don't feel the belly like you do when you sit. So try to work the advantage of this, stretching out through that left hip, and then bend the left knee. And then as you come back up, you're going to take that left hand to hold the belt. I want you to slide. Now you could, again, you could have the belt so that your wrist is through it, right? You could make the belt loop longer, shorter. Bend the right knee and then open out through the hip. So I'm going to put a block. You know, a ball would work too on this one, wouldn't it? Ball might be really nice to have under your right leg. And then stretch that left leg open. Yeah. Just observe if you're pretty flexible on your thighs when they stretch this way and it just basically pushes out and it doesn't feel so stable, it just feels like you're flexible. You might stop that flexibility. You might put a ball or block at the very outer corner of that left hip and then stay with that energy of externally rotating. But now, right, you have something that blocks you from overstretching and gives you stability in the back of the joint. So that's pretty nice. A block would work just as well. Or a wadded blanket. Your other blanket could be wadded up there. Seems like I remembered things on the second side much better, huh? Okay, takes practice. Now feel if your heel is starting to push up, meaning you're really externally rotating. I want you to keep the inside line of the leg. That fabric, if you were to touch it, and it's fabric, right? Connective tissue above the muscle. If it's feeling, you know, like it's sensation, it's getting pulled. But notice if it feels shaky, jittery, that's too much, right? So if you're jittering your leg out and shakiness, it's too far. So find where it's somewhere between, oh, I feel that yanking and I'm not shaking. Yanking, not shaking. Okay. Now come back on up. Okay. Now we're going to take both feet up. I got my belt loop a little bit too small here, huh? And now as you push your feet out, I want you to take that position so it's comfortable for your back of your pelvis, okay? So take a wide stance, those that feel like it's not jittery, and feel the legs so they are sending the direction out from your hip, straight open. Let your back press down at your shoulder blades, upper back. Take a block, okay, between the hands, wide, overhead. And I want you to actually push into the block. Interestingly, the feet push out, the hands push in. It's a duality. And so as I'm pressing into my block, I want you to try to get the armpit back to the elbow tip, reaching as if you're trying to get that to lift up and back, almost like you're shrugging your shoulders. Okay, capitalize on that awareness in the upper arms, okay? Please feel that energy in the upper arms. Okay, or don't, it's up to you. Okay, now when you move your block up towards the ceiling, okay, feel the hands hold on, make sure you're holding your block firm right up from the chest, and then bend your elbows like you're trying to bring them together right now, so they're not going to touch. Never say never, but feel the principle here of from elbow to hand, straight back, like your block is, for some of you, it might be almost bonking your head, right? Depends on your arm length, but I want you to try to bend your elbows so if your block could touch your forehead, touch it down. Maybe it's over the crown of your head, depending on arm length. And then the block goes straight. Straight up is the key. A little shakiness in the arms, alternate. Head bonk. Okay, a little touch, and then straight up. Okay, a few more. Try to pick up the pace with the movement of the arms. The legs are in a regulated pattern. Now, as you bend your knees, your feet are going to go forward, and then you're going to move that block off to the side. Rally in the belt here. So you're going to pull the belt and the feet slip together. Slide the belt off of the feet as your feet land on the bolster, okay? Changing it up. We're starting to get ourselves to a different phase here. So what I like you to do is push your bolster to the right side of your mat. You've been in this frame before, but right now we're going to have our feet on the floor, hips distancing. Windshield wiper the knees. Now, sometimes I do windshield wiper feet wider, but try to keep them disciplined on the distancing. If you had a block between them, that might be interesting too, but it would probably be a little messy. It would flip a little side to side. So we want to let the hip get a little bit of that massage. So before we get into the leg crossover, you're going to either do this, windshield wiper, or if you have a ball, you're going to walk your feet in closer to your buttocks, put the ball under your left buttock, massage into the glutes. So left buttock is the key right now, left. If you're windshield wipering, you have both sides working. But we're working on the left hip. So feel that body weight, your body weight, crushing into the ball. From your back, you usually put a little weight into your upper back as well, so it's hard to get all of your body weight in your buttock, but strive to squish it and move. So you're doing both weight and movement across the buttock. And then slide the ball away close by your buttock and stretch the right leg down. Cross the left leg over to the bolster and tuck in the ball to the sacrum, or a block, right? A little block point would be comfortable. And then as you add your sand to your exterior left thigh or not, you can hold and hook onto your left leg with your hand, or you could have your sandbag on the side of the leg. And orient your chest to turn open, roll your head left, roll the upper body left. Okay, so for this one today, I'm not going to show with a sandbag. So you have the idea of what you could do without, right? You could use your right hand. I know if you have a sandbag, you're going to go right for it, but feeling if you do use your sand, you might put it closer to the knee, okay? But you could go back to that frame I had just a moment ago with your hand holding on to the leg, but you are kind of hooking your hand around the corner of the left leg, kind of the muscular band, and persuading it to go to the right. So does the sandbag, doesn't it? And you can let both hands relax if you don't have to hold on. So sandbag or not, here we come. Turn the head to the left. Let your eyes rest in from top to bottom. Yeah, feel that it's all a continuation, right? You're in continuation mode this morning in your body and your existence. So feeling what shapes, exploring each of the shapes like it's a pose potluck today. And if it seems really simple and actually more subtle, can you enjoy that on a deeper level? Now with the belly moving in balance with breath. Okay, feel this counter twist here. So this is a twist. It's a hip opener, but it really is a twist too, right? My back is in a shape where it starts with a straight spine. We like to do that when we do seated twists, but it's quite different because of our shoulder weight. So use the shoulder weight to the back body. Use this all as a setup for what's to come. Maybe it'll help out. So as I move my ball, I'm going to use it on my glute in a moment, so I'm not going to toss it out of town. But as you slide your sand away, go back to that, actually wait, counter twist. So left leg over right leg, don't forget, legs over to the left. Okay, so I have a crossing of my legs, left leg over right, legs to the left, and a ball or a block could be under your left thigh, nothing could be there. There's nothing right now. I have to put something in if I want it. So it's a little squeamish in your IT band for some of us. You might feel just these lateral rotators from your kind of the sleeve down from that hip all the way through the side. Okay, so feel if it's been pulled tight, right, around the surface of those tissues. So when we use the ball now on the right buttock, it's going to make you want to go get a ball. And if you have another object that's not maybe this exact grippy ball from the Dollar Tree, you might find something else that's just as well. If you have any these self-massage props. So when you come back in center, I kind of pull back. It pulls the back a little bit too when you swing that way. So use the bridge pose to stabilize the back again. Place the ball to the right buttock and massage. Now, if you don't have the ball, what are you going to do? Windshield wiper, right? So massaging, or keep massaging those that have the ball, or feet about hips distance, far enough away that when you windshield wiper, you actually get a stretch. You don't want your feet too close to your rear. You don't want them so far away you're laying on your back taking a nap, but you kind of get the drift of it. So ball is really at the higher part of my buttock, glute medius. But it's better to go with the flow with it. Where does it feel grippy? Not where the instructor has an idea it should be. Maybe you are kind of rolling into your right side and you kind of feel a spot on the hip that's sensitive and that feels kind of painfully good to massage into it. Okay, so we're going to move the bolster. You might be able to keep the ball there at your buttock for a bit. Okay, rear ball. Okay, so I got my bolster on the left side. Now, when I lower down off of the ball, out of the windshield wiper, left leg down, right leg crosses over, and all those good things. And then you add the ball, okay? And Some of you might add sand, some might pass on the sand idea, or pass sand up to your leg. But center the, and if your leg doesn't center on the bolster very easily, add your other blanket, okay? Adding a block works for some people. And if it feels awkward with the block on top of the bolster, you could put it under the bolster. So it just brings up the height. So focus on that direction of your neck. So you're going to turn your head to the right. Feel the arms stretch open. Relax your eyes. Naturally feel the support of the arms in a balance opening. Give it a few more moments. Stretch the muscles between the ribs. And probably by now you're a little more relaxed. Right? This probably is that time to notice I'm pretty calm. We'll see what comes after this. Okay. So feel where that leg, you know, it presses a little bit on over, doesn't it? The leg, if it has sand, I suppose that creates the ability to press down. But what we're going to work our way towards, right, is starting to work on this upper side flesh. We've got the lower leg pattern really well done. So we're going to move along from that and try to thread it up. So, you know, I'll guide you with the awareness kind of reminders of the legs, but we're going to move on up. So when I move the ball away, sometimes it feels rushed at times, I know the sequence, but we're going to move along from our back. It's harder to get up from our back than it is to start on the back and move along, meaning a bolster under your spine. So we don't have that, so it gets us a little bit more kind of calm zone, not a big chest lift, right? So when you slide your sand away, I know you're out there somewhere. Okay, bring your knees in, cross the right leg over the left leg, right leg over left, no ball. Okay, this is important to kind of have that away so you don't fall into it. But if you have that right leg gripped over the left and you lean your legs to the right, and it's just nice to have the ball, that's fine, or the block, or, you know, something that's already there. But feel this left side. Now, this is kind of cool. We're going to be on this, we're going to be stretching our left side in our side sage next. So we feel this left channel, right? This whole guide of motion through the rib cage. So how about this? Okay. We'll move our knees back center. I want you to actually uncross because it would be hard to get up with the legs crossed like that. Roll left, come on up, and here we are for the second set into the program. So you're going to take a blanket. So you're sitting in the front of your mat. This is important, the front zone if you're looking forward. I wonder if this happens easier when you're at home than in the studio. We'll try it. 2 blankets stacked, okay? Bolster right next to them. So this is the front, okay, of my mat. And now when I'm up and I look forward, that's the zone. So I'm going to lean into this side, this right side sage, and you can have a ball on the inside of the knee. You can use your block overhead, and you might take a moment to center here. So this side flesh, kind of interestingly, the last shape, I don't really feel the continuation of it quite yet, but when you add some weight to your side, especially upper weight today, because we were on our lower leg path for a while, below hip and down. So you want to stay from at least a little bit above the hip. It doesn't have to be on the ribs, but a little bit above the hip. If you're finding you can get your sand on your ribs, take it there so it's lengthwise, straight up the side. Left arm is over, right arm is between the bolster and the blanket. If you have two bolsters, if you have a flat and a round, you put the round here under your ribs. It's really nice to have. So with that right leg kind of hooked up and bending, rest your consciousness, the weight of your head into the blankets, and feel that possibility of range of motion now for your upper body. Getting everything kind of pushed out right now. Push it out from the center, a little bit of a cleanse. Yeah, let that internal atmosphere kind of clean out as much as the external atmosphere is. You know, we'll work our way through these three poses that are kind of a blending of the three. They're a harmonious blend for our breathing muscles, our respiratory tree, right? Upper lobes of the lungs, bronchial tubes, throat. So notice how you can do these side sages with a chest opener in between. Often we'll do cat-cow. Sometimes we'll sit up and then come back into the side. So this is different. I think it's a good idea to add this in our practice. It kind of briefs up the side sage material. Makes it a little briefer. So when I let my sand shift off my ribs, I'm going to work to actually roll onto my back on the bolster. So if I have a ball inside the knee, I'm going to kind of get that, move that away. Yeah. And then I'm going to roll, actually I'm going to lift up with my elbows on the bolster first. And when I move onto my back, you can put a ball under your sacrum or a block. You don't have to do that, but it might be easier on your back to have something underneath that space. And then when you lower your head back to the blankets, you have this comfortable chest opener, right? If I don't have the block, I have a pretty deep back bend, right? And chest opener is maybe a little more satisfying if you add your sand to your ribs. But you might want something underneath you, and it might take you time to finesse that one. Okay, that feels like it's a pretty good hold. The grippies kind of get stuck sometimes to your clothes on the ball. So feel where the shoulders glide back, and can you use the shoulder blades as an extension of your back muscles, like you're trying to dig it into the bolster. So bolster dig. Okay, chest is open. Sand is really an option if you're feeling, wow, this is a very vertical direction with my rib cage. I want you to try to let the breath move horizontally. Okay, take a few moments to feel motion with the ribs and the lungs. Don't forget the lungs. Eyes closed, top to bottom. Simplify. Now switch the sage. Turn to your left. Feel how you might be able to move the ball or block and and kind of squirm the ribs so you're figuring out how to use the bolster. Now, if you have a round bolster, that is it's a very nice back bend, right? Because it's not as pressurized at the back of the ribs. It's contouring the arch. So if you want that round bolster and you have a flat one, you might be able to use a blanket like a tube on top. And then I take it to the other side, ball or block inside the leg, sand it the ribs or not, right? You might perceive getting into this and feel the reach of your right arm, but sense the direction of the belly too, okay? So feel the stomach muscles and feel the abdominal range. And there's always something to kind of plug in your brain to. Isn't that the truth, right? I plug into things sometimes I wish I didn't plug into, but right now you really are kind of plugged into patterns of movement, and the practice is about, really refining your movements, right? It's a little more kinesiology work than that's what we're up to in this practice that I teach. So feeling the pathways, the body spaces, that's where it's going in this experience. So I want you to try to feel where you get a little more ease of motion, right? I know your range of motion might be better in some places than the other, what you think better is, but just focus on feeling. Sand or not on this side, if you're using that sand, it goes up to the ribs. If you're using a bag of rice, it might be a little different placement, right? As long as it's not going all over the floor. Okay. So if the sand is here, it could also be across the hip, so right over. It kind of easily crosses through, doesn't it? Okay. So get a few more moments here. Feel the range, the expression. And now when we lower down into the bolster and we turn into it, let the sand shift off and actually turn so that you'll make your way to all fours, okay? You're gonna reorient your blankets. They don't know what they're doing up on that side of town, right? So you're gonna take one of them under your knees. And let's move a bolster away. And let's move the other blanket out of sight, out of mind. And then we got our blocks, okay? So when you take on up dog, you'll want to press your hands out open. And when you reach your hips downwards, okay, feel that fundamental pattern of moving your ribs forward and up, and then come back to table. Toes under, lift the knees, downward dog, heels towards the floor. Try to let this be a very outstretched, like a long dog pose, not a long time dog pose. That's not what you were looking for today, probably, but feel that you're almost kind of stretched out where the heels just barely touch down, even if you normally can get them. It's a stretch. And it can be irritating to be this stretched out. So when you lift up your heels and you step your feet together, big toes and all, okay? You're gonna lift up the left leg towards ceiling, assuming or sky, wherever you happen to be practicing. And lower your right heel towards the floor. Notice if that works out better if you got one leg versus, well, 1 foot versus 2 feet on the floor. Okay, lower down the left foot, switch sides, take breaks if you would like. You can bring your knees down, right? No breaks on the body, right? But take a mental break, you can lower your knees. But with my head below my heart, it changes my breathing regulation. I can feel differences in the breath. I sound different likely. So as the left and right foot are now both down, lower down the knees and stretch your hips back towards your feet. Have your hands out wide enough, head down. It's a type of child's pose, isn't it, right? So you'll feel like this seems to be child's pose. Those of you that want to go all the way back and have more of a seated child's pose, you could kind of lean back so your ribs are actually supported by the knees. Isn't that interesting? It kind of scoops them up. But not all knees like to scoop up ribs, okay? So feel the hands open. Okay, now come back up to table. And this time we're going to take our blocks a little closer on the sides of our mat. Okay, and we'll step our right foot between and place our hands up on them so that there is support. Okay, you've got a little bit more height this way. Simple, low lunge. So left thigh stretches down a little further into the blanket. If you are not one that wants your knee to press that direction, you could try moving your blocks farther back, right, and see if that changes things up. You could lift up the back knee and still work on reaching through the thigh. You could slide the knee back, right, and kind of work with where it is placed on your height, right, on the blanket. What's helpful so that this whole, I want you to focus on this whole front thigh tissue, right? So all the way from the hip flexor down just above the knee, as if that area is getting kind of pulled apart, okay? So the only way we can do that in this form, this human form, right, is, although I don't know if you're going to have that particular space on another form, but is body weight, right, downwards. Okay, body weight down for this one. Keep it simple. Toes under left foot, lift up the back knee, press back into the heel. And I want you to try to keep that heel reaching and turn the back left foot to the floor so the heel is down. It feels like it's a toes in position with the foot, right? Feel the right knee just above the ankle and that kind of murky stretch on the inner thigh. It's not a big deal, right, this stretch. And I don't want you to try to enforce and deepen that, but have your hands on 2 blocks. You can bring them up higher. You can lower them down. Try to keep that inner leg material in these 2 different phases. This one is more internal. This one is more external on the right leg. And then bring your right foot to turn towards the block that's under your left hand. Take your block on the left hand out and then now turn towards your left so you're in a wide stance. Hands under shoulders on the blocks into a wide angle forward bend. Toes in, heels out. Both feet are pretty equal. And my hips extend back so the hamstrings really feel that fullness. You're welcome to lower down onto your elbows, right? If it feels like, oh, I can get here on my elbows and kind of lurk in this position. Stay with that, but try to pull the thigh bones up like you're drawing the kneecaps up, 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 so that there's a direction in the front of the legs that's opposite what you just did when you were lunging, right? So my front thighs are pulling up. Okay, feel how the back of the knees open. I don't want you to try to overstretch them so they get warm. They should feel like they kind of cool off from the bending. And then those that want to go a little further, you're going to bring your hands inside of the line of the toes, toe line, okay, big toe line, or toe line, toes themselves, and bend your elbows and bring the crown of your head to the floor or the blanket or a block, right? So you might find you move your blanket in so it's under you, your block is on top, the crown of your head is there, okay? If you do that block and you have now rounded your back, you don't need it. So I want you to make sure that your spine is straight, okay? But hands stay on the floor, so you're actually using the back of the arms a little bit. So I want you to feel the back of the arms and the bend of the elbows. Few more moments here. Crown of the head, not the forehead. Okay, now lift up just a tad, just enough that you can actually get your weight back into your feet even. And then grasp on forward to the blocks and turn back to the right foot. And change sides slowly by taking a standing forward bend, Uttanasana. So I'm going to push off the ball of the left foot, the left foot, to the right foot. Feel the stamp of the heels. Feel that forward bend. If you like things like sun salutes, those are just good to get energy through the body too. You might want to spend a moment here, bend your knees, open your arms, come up. This is only for those that want to take this position. Reach your palms together, lift your gaze up to your hands. I know you can't see that part of me, but lift up your gaze to your hands. And then open your arms out and come back forward over the legs and then step back into that right foot. And take this one back, we'll go backwards through this one. So the back foot's gonna turn, so the toes are in, the heel steps back, and the left knee is above the ankle, okay? So simply feel that experience into that left inner thigh. It's kind of on the subtle channel for leg stretches. Pivot the back heel up, stretch the right heel back and down, reach the left knee above the ankle to that lunge. Okay, now you can gradually lower the right knee to the blanket and guide your knee down to cushion and then start to stretch through the front of that right thigh. Yeah, this is where we'll start adding our bolster. So if you found a bolster, come back, bolster underneath my leg, and you could guide your right hip down to that bolster. And just notice, does that kind of give a little bit of ease on the kneecap? Does it change? Or if it's not, what you might do is move your blocks forward, scoot your left foot forward, and then try to get your leg a little bit on the bolster. So it's actually not pressing into your knee. And let your toes relax back. Emphasize your quadricep, right thigh lid. Now, as we keep that position for a few more, collect your focus into your hips. We're going to kind of do a nice little hip swish, right, in this final set. Hip swishing. Left foot walks to the right to pigeon on the left hip. So I'm going to go toe heel to the right with my left foot and then move my left knee open. And as I center my left buttock, it's a different rear stretch, isn't it? right? It's a glute. It's a rare rear stretch, right? So I try to use that left foot to hook into the bolster a little bit, but my foot's not on top of the bolster, right? It's in front. And then as you walk your hands over to the right side, you're going to lower your elbows down onto your blocks or the floor. If the blocks make it too easy for you, it's okay to go all the way down to the ground. The blocks also kind of bring some harmony to, I would think, the range of your spine, right? We don't generally want to learn how to round our back more. So it seems like this would be nice to have some height under your arms, even if it's a blanket. Now, feel where you're reaching your ribs to the right. Okay, your arms are to the right, your ribs are to the right. You're in a left pigeon pose. Now, when you come to the center, I would encourage the blocks to be back out wide. Okay, see if you can balance the spine strength here. So we're not required, there's no requirement for sitting up onto your left buttock, sorry, and trying to get your full spine arch. But notice when you do go without your props as much, like if you try to get your hands on your bolster, you know, most of this is spine, not just the flexibility, but it's actually lower back strength, right? So paraspinal. So when we sit on that left buttock, we're going to move the right leg and swing the leg over. It's kind of going to swish the back of the hip, okay? So the right foot is on the floor here. I'm going to give 2 seated twist options, okay? So now that your back has kind of been through movement for a while, this is a good like pose, peak pose, okay? So my left knee is either bending or it's straight, okay? Either one, okay? Either way, your sitting bones are not the focus of the root, okay? So I want you to try to work your way towards, I know you gotta sit, so you got sitting bone thoughts, but I want your root of your twist to be, I got a block behind me, right? The root of your turn is to let the pelvis move, you know, in balance with the sacrum. So feeling this kind of lower basket weave of the pelvis. Turn to the right and left elbow hooks to that right leg, and feel if you can straighten the left arm. If you bend your arm and it feels like you get a little bit more lift into the mid back because it goes up to the shoulder, right? Because the elbow bending, okay? Or the arm straight. So find one or the other, right, that works for you in the moment. And then feel if you can move from your back, you know how we didn't really do cat-cow today, did we? So kind of feel your back move from round and then to lift and then to twist. So my right buttock has a little bit of stretch here. Okay, now counter twist, left hand back, right arm to the inside of the knee, and counter twist whether you have your left leg straight or not, right? The left leg for me is bent right now, yours might be straight. But when you turn, can you let your belly move? Massage through the organs. And then as that is toning the organs and you feel that range of movement, breathe deep. Feel how that right thigh might be warming up a little further. And then turn back forward. Now, here's where we're going to shift it up for the pigeon on the other side. So I want you to cross the right foot in front of the left knee. shift back, and then let the left leg stretch back. And I would be a little careful, right, with the knee joint. So I'm going to kind of really rely on leaning and then stretching back into that left thigh and figuring out the ways of moving into my legs with the pointiness of knees right now. So when you lower down into your right thigh, okay, you can have your blocks under your hands. You might try this version we came up with the last time, the last side. Did we come up with it or did I? I don't know. Okay, I'm going to the top left corner with my blocks under elbows, and I'm actually kind of feeling my right inner thigh with a fairly detailed stretch. Okay, so feel that sensation through the inner leg. Any breath and evolving movement from the breath is useful, whether it's a light arching of the spine, rounding and flexion. Feel the back in both its motions, so it's a little bit of cat-cow. I like to get some of that vertebral mobilization, whether it's your basic cat-cow on hands and knees, or here it's nice because my wrists don't have any pressure. So I'm moving my spine, rounding and arching. Multi-pose tasking. And then center. Give yourself some space to sense the right hip. Now, can you be, creative? This final set here, creatively, the inner thigh muscles on that right leg, might feel kind of on the verge of they're getting maximum pull and, somewhat vulnerable. So when I lean back to my right thigh, I'm going to use my blocks back to the front. And then I'm going to be careful that when I take that left leg forward and cross it over the right leg, that I still continue to be aware of my spine to the crown of my head, right? So it's like this, we did this on our back, we did these twists on the back, they're kind of sleepy twists in some ways. This is like feeling all the places where there's reservations, right? Holding patterns and trying to get yourself to that kind of physicality that's, up, feeling a little upward and awake. Okay, so that left foot is on the floor. And then when I connect, well, I hope it is. I didn't add the sandbag to this one today, and kind of because I was, psychically immersed in my midsection and didn't think of the extra prop. But you can always put your sand on your inner thigh. So if you've already done that and you've been visiting with each other about that, maybe you psychically did. The sand could go on the right inner thigh. Okay, next time I'll remember that. Pose highlights. So hook the right elbow to the left leg and twist. Yeah, and feel the twist is different than when you're on your back. In the back, it's not sloppy, but it's kind of easy to gain the motion when you're on your back. So this is, very integrative of your core, your diaphragmatic band, the rib kind of ribbons, and the thick back ribs. So inhale up and exhale, turn. And then if that block is a place you can move it a little farther back, we'll do so. Maybe that feels good for your shoulder. It's a very nice guide for the shoulder and the collarbones to have something underneath the hand. Breathe a little higher up in the ribs. See if you can get higher up into the lung lobes. Not your ear lobes, but your lung lobes. We don't do much for earlobes in here, do we? Now with that right arm bending or straighten, both are good, both are interesting for your back muscles. Okay, so we're going to take a moment, and when we unwind, I want you to come around towards front and place the feet in a diamond shape. So you uncross, you have the soles of the feet together. Place a sandbag on the feet across or towards you. And so it could be directionally this way or this way, either way. Okay. So we kind of had this start in the class. We're going to actually end at legs up the wall in a moment, but we had our feet on the ground, our knees were out. So we're going to take our belt, and then as you hold on to that behind you, I want you to pull the belt like you're trying to stretch it out. You're trying to stretch the belt back and out. So giving that belt its full workout. Cannot wait to get a workout. So pull it apart, and if you want to bring your hands closer, it doesn't feel good to me, but if you want to, but feel where the resistance is actually hitting up your chest muscles. Okay. Hit up the chest muscles for a moment. You know, this region in the front is where we want to have that kind of slope with the inversion. We want this to open, the core muscles to relax. Okay, so let go of your belt. Bring your feet in, slide them in from the Baddha Konasana band. Baddha Konasana band. And we'll take a wall spot. So I want you to find a spot at a wall, okay? Or if you are gonna have your bolster at the base of a bed or a couch, you could do that as well. But you're gonna put your bolster at the base, and a blanket could be under your head, or you can go without one. You don't have to have one. And when we do roll, swing the legs up, have a sandbag nearby, okay? So before you get upside down, take a moment here when you're sitting on your bolster, right? When you feel your sitting bones this direction down, okay? You're trying to point your sitting bones to the wall to get upside down. So try to lean in. You might have a little corner in the room. Sometimes these are really good. A lot of space, only fits my legs really. So I found a good spot. So what I'm going to do is slide my arm through, and I'm going to roll on my sacrum to bring my feet up at the wall or the bed or a chair with a bolster on top of it. You can be very creative on your height under your legs or behind you under your base. And get a feel where your seat is to the wall, and your feet are up. And then when you're here, you're going to place your sand at your soles and push the sand up, then heels to the wall, okay? Let the back of the legs kind of cool off and soften the feeling in your knees, and let the legs drain. Legs, feet, and actually it's interesting how this is a drain of the fluid in the chest, right? I mean, there's fluids everywhere inside this layer I'm in. So you're trying to open up the lungs here. So I've got some bolster under my back of my pelvis, a little bit into my ribs, lifts up my belly, and then creates this inversion. So arms could be back holding the elbows, they could be straight back. Try something a little different with your legs up with your arms. And then center your mind back into the sensation of the face softening around the eyes, the nose, and the jaw. Try to let go of all the muscles that you use to speak. And just be in that stillness. Feel the belly motion with the breath. And just alternate the in and the out breath as your only practice right now. Feel that as the base practice, although you have featured your body into these shapes to influence circulation and to designate a kind of a brain wave focus. That's kind of how we learn. But right now we're just in that stillness. Whatever thoughts kind of arise, and let them be like clouds, let them go, just that traditional instruction, let it go by. And still be who you are with your breath. Now, can you feel the pressure at the back of the pelvis, right? This position rests your organs from gravity's constant pull, right? So it's the opposite of prolapse. So we might feel the weight difference is now in the back of the pelvis. You know, it's fairly comfy for the back musculature. But it's a change in the blood pressure and the heart rate. So the mind might be relatively calm. So when we carry ourselves to the very ends of this practice today, we'll try to kind of end with a beam of calm and stillness. And feeling support from others that are in this practice with you. They will not suddenly appear in your room, but there is a bit of a connection going along. Now with enough timing, we're going to move our arms so they come to the core body, and then soften the knees and feel when the heels might kind of scrub against the wall. If you're on a bed frame, it's not going to be quite that same pressure, a little easier to shift out. But you'll move your feet away, and then the thighs are moving to your ribs. And then you'll get rid of that sand however you want to. Maybe you use your hands to get the sand off of your feet. Maybe you carefully navigate moving it overhead. But feel your feet back to the wall, knees bend, of course, and try to let that back experience feel as if it's still inverting the circulation internally. So again, that's not only soothing to the organs, but it's at the same time toning. Right? It's turning it upside down internally, the atmosphere. The inner environment is well washed out here. And then when the legs move away from the wall, you're kind of stuck with needing to roll out. So take a pause here. You're going to roll to the side, feel that directional flow, and let gravity have you. With gravity, you slide out and come up and find a seated position, whether you sit cross-legged on a blanket, You find a block, anything that's around you to sit on. Some people like to sit in that style with your feet right behind you onto a block under your seat. Let the hands be in like little bowls on the thighs, resting in your lap. Feel the palms open, receptive. And feel that nature of breathing pace. If you can let that breath pace gravitate towards slowing down. Yeah, still feeling in body, embodied. And then as the hands rise up to meet at the heart space, if that's your choosing to complete practice, your choice, hands on lap or hands in unity together. Both are work well, palms open or palms together. And as you breathe in together, dedicating the practice, honoring this life force and others, and bowing into the space behind your heart. In gratitude, namaste. Okay. All right, thank you everyone. Thanks for